return allowances. Dar es Salaam hit by sugar shortage despite government intervention. And in sports, coronavirus pandemic affects operation funds of Tanzania Professional Boxing Regulatory Commission. Good evening, this is Capital News at 9:30. My name is Khadija Zimbwe. First, the national news. Speaker of Parliament Job Ndugai has told members of the House from opposition Chadema Party who are not attending proceedings on claims that they are on self-isolation being implementation of a directive from the leader of the opposition camp in Parliament, Freeman Boy, to recognize that what they are doing is against the law and that there are several procedures they are supposed to take to be allowed to return. Now, Speaker Ndugai said the members of Parliament will have to return allowances paid for the period they have not attended Parliament proceedings.
Kwanza wao wamerudisha hizo fedha, lakini la pili wawe na clearance ya COVID-19 ndio wakanyaga kwenye geti la bunge.
They must return the money, but they should also have a COVID-19 clearance before they can be allowed access.
Zaidi kwa kundi hili.
Now, the budget estimates were represented on behalf of Minister Dr. Hussein Mwinyi, who is away on special assignment by the Minister of State for Policy Coordination, National Assembly, Labour, Youth and People with Disabilities, Jenista Mhagama, who said the budget was geared to modernizing the defense force.
Some of the challenges includes damage caused to the border signs, existence of signs of conflict in some countries we share our borders with, which has been one of the contributing factors in criminals and refugees entering the country. Nonetheless, measures are in place to ensure that permanent border signs are erected. The government must recognize the need to repair military personnel housing. The budget on youth training in the army must also be increased and come with a system which will enable them to acquire skills in self-reliance.
Tulipatie jeshi la wananchi wa Tanzania fedha za kutosha.
On threatening illnesses, including the coronavirus, experience shows developed countries use the military for key research projects.
Despite Dar es Salaam region government announcing an operation against traders who are violating government indicative price on sugar, the commodity has disappeared in many retail and wholesale shops. The traders have said that for the past week, distributors have not sold them any sugar despite paying for the commodity upfront.
It is difficult to get sugar these days because sugar is imported outside the country. That is why it is not easy for traders to accept government's indicated price. In this Ramadan, we are cooking porridge with salt because sugar is untouchable. Imagine we have been here since the morning waiting for sugar.
The government, through the Ministry of Health, Community Development, Gender, the Elderly and Children, Umi Mwalimu, has received a donation of various items worth 1.6 billion shillings from various companies, institutions, and private and public organizations to support government efforts against the coronavirus pandemic. Speaking in Dar es Salaam, Minister of Health Umi Mwalimu urged stakeholders who are supporting the fight against the coronavirus pandemic to adhere to quality standards on materials donated, particularly those imported from outside the country.
Local Richard Insert Yakwanza, we are grateful to all of you who have donated medical and protective equipment. We value your contribution immensely. It is a big help because it serves as a motivation to our health workers. We will continue to instruct TMDA to be more vigilant in certifying medical equipment.
Government's efforts, and we are humbled to be in the presence of TPC and our partners to be able to offer a contribution to assist, and we look to help in the future. This is only the beginning.
Private sector.
As the private sector, we are with you, shoulder to shoulder with government in fighting this enemy.
The government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation, has said it has seen transportation challenges that have been occurring along its borders at a time when the country is fighting against the coronavirus pandemic, and that measures are being taken to address them. This was said by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Ambassador Colonel Wilbert Ibuge, during talks with the Ambassador of Zambia in Tanzania, Benson K. Charlie.
The cooperation continues to get stronger, and more so during this period of the COVID-19. What is most important is on how we are going to work together in enabling small and medium investors to build capacity to produce, and work with other businesses which will cross over in their production capacity during and after this period.
And residents from Mtapenda Ward, in collaboration with Nsimbo District Council in Katavi region, have constructed a temporary bridge which connects Mtapenda, Katumba, Mtambo, Kanswa and Mnyaki villages in Mpanda Municipal. The residents have said the bridge will address challenges they have been facing after the bridge over River Mtapenda was demolished by floods caused by ongoing rains.
People used to travel long distance on the tarmac road, 29 kilometers, instead of 7. So in just a couple of days, it felt like a whole year. However, we are grateful for efforts made working with the people to see this project completed. Work done is meant to help those using bicycles, boarders, and for those crossing over on foot. But you cannot transport farm produce to the market. We're asking the government for emergency funds so we can construct this bridge. All fresh produce come from this side, so we've taken all steps necessary to fix this problem.
And that is the end of national news. International news follows next. And in international news, Kenya has recorded 47 new COVID-19 cases, making the highest number of infections confirmed in the country so far over a period of 24 hours. This now brings the total number of coronavirus cases in the country to 582, with 26 fatalities after 2 patients passed away in their homes in Mombasa.
We have a new high of 47 persons who have tested positive to the disease. Thus, Kenya now has 581 people who have tested positive from the beginning. In today's number, 32 persons are from Mombasa, while 11 are from Nairobi. We now have 2 cases in Busia, 1 in Kiambu, and 1 in Kwale.
The business community in Uganda has criticized President Yoweri Museveni's decision to allow some businesses' activities to continue while the lockdown is extended for another 14 days. They said it will not be possible to do business when consumers continue to remain indoors.
The other day he said that garages should be open, but then he said shops selling spare parts should not be open. But if you take a car to the garage, you need to have spares. I am in a bad situation. There is nothing to do, nothing to eat, there is nothing.
And the Director of Public Prosecution in Burundi has warned politicians to avoid use of language that can incite animosity during election campaigns. The warning comes after the police force reported that 2 people were killed and more than 20 others injured when violence broke out at a campaign rally.
We would like to remind all citizens, especially those from opposition parties, that laws continue to be respected and enforced, especially during this campaign period, and anyone who goes against this will be punished. We remind leaders of political parties who are running campaigns that they are under the law, and we call on them to be careful that the statements they make do not cause issues within the country.
And in tonight's special report, Capital Television's Vanessa Victor and political correspondent Thomas Sparrow from our media partner DW, Deutsche Welle, discuss the results of the lockdown easing measures in Germany.
As the world continues to combat the corona pandemic, we turn to Germany as Chancellor Merkel and regional leaders are to meet to evaluate whether the lockdown easing measures decided on a couple of weeks ago have borne fruit. Joining me now is our political correspondent Thomas Sparrow from our media partner Deutsche Welle. Thomas, can you give us an update on how the lockdown easing of measures has been going, what's been happening, and what has the response been from the public?
Last few weeks, and that began, for example, with reopening certain shops of under 800 square meters. At the same time, schools were asked to prepare for a gradual reopening. So, for example, school leavers were asked to return first while schools prepared to be able to maintain hygiene and social distancing measures. And afterwards, the next step was to reopen museums, churches, hairdressers, botanical gardens, zoos, among other institutions. And the next step that is being discussed is whether Germany should go even further, for example, and order the reopening of all shops, as well as, for example, reopen or make possible for football matches from the Bundesliga, the German league, to restart. That is something that today is being discussed by the German government, by Angela Merkel, and regional governments. And the reason behind that is because many of the decisions are actually made and carried out by the regional governments themselves. So, for example, regional governments will be deciding here as well. At the same time, it's important to stress that so remain in Germany. So, for example, only few people can meet at the same time. You need to wear public transport, and those are important elements to prevent peak again in number of cases, because what officials have mentioned time and time again is that if you can call this a success, then it is a partial and fragile success. In other words, Germany still has to do a lot to try and make sure that the situation is completely under control. Now, when you ask about how this has been received, then obviously Germans have been careful to make sure that they comply with these rules and regulations, but at the same time you do sense some sort of impatience about all this. This has been going for a long time. It is not something exclusive to Germany, but there is a sort of sense that things slowly but surely have to go back to normal, in particular if you view the very difficult economic output and economic situation that Germany and the European Union will face as a result of the coronavirus crisis.
Okay, so based on the results so far, does the government and the regional governments feel equipped to initiate more easing measures?
That exactly depends on the numbers, and as far as we know, the numbers have been positive in the last few days. Again, authorities at both the federal and regional level have been stressing that it is still a partial success, that you can't say that Germany has definitely beat the coronavirus. On the other hand, there are positive numbers if you compare Germany with other European countries. And when you ask if both the federal and the regional governments are equipped to deal with this, then again we have to understand how Germany actually works. Germany is a federal country, which basically means that the federal authority, the federal government and regional governments have to try and coordinate in many cases their moves, because it is ultimately up to regional governments to decide on matters of education, for example, or health, or as I said earlier, of reopening restaurants. But obviously what the federal government wants is to have something coordinated, because what the federal government does not want is for there to be confusion, in particular what happens in one state and what happens in another state. So that's why it's important to understand why, when we talk about easing of restrictions in Germany, we always have to consider the fact that it's not only something authorized by the federal government here in Berlin, but something that has to be very clearly negotiated and discussed with regional governments across the country.
And this week will also mark 75 years since the end of the Second World War. Will easing measures change in any way what has been planned to commemorate this, since many events had been planned but of course were cancelled due to the outbreak?
That's correct. So in fact this weekend, this Friday, is a very important day, not only in Germany but in Europe in general. And before all this, before the coronavirus outbreak, obviously a big event had been planned, or at least was being planned. But that was changed, that changed as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, German officials are still interested in commemorating this day, and that's why, as far as we know, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor, as well as the German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, will be meeting here in Berlin on Friday. There's a speech expected by the German President, but this is also obviously also very controlled in a way to make sure that everyone who's attending, and not many people will be allowed to attend, can maintain and keep some of those social distancing measures and hygiene measures that are so important in Germany. So there will be a commemoration. It will be important, but it will obviously not be as big as it had been planned before coronavirus.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for that insight. I'll let you go now, and until next time, continue to stay safe.
Until next time, stay healthy.
And that is the end of international news. Business news follows next.
Watch Business Edition as we talk to business leaders and experts in sectors that are transforming Tanzania's economy.
We believe that the driver is the customer.
To change the mindset of traditional HR to the digitalization.
Make sure that everybody can get some access to financial services.
And once we understand the vision of our leaders, we then need to be behind them and help them in achieving that vision.
Business have involved mercantile operations, trade guilds, or shared agricultural production, infrastructure, construction, financial sectors, tourism, and mining. Business Edition on Friday at 8:15 p.m.
Welcome back, and in business news tonight. Handeni district in Tanga region has also been impacted by the sugar crisis in the country. Government indicative prices are not beneficial. Consumers have said the situation has created hardships for many, particularly those who need sugar to prepare iftar during the holy month of Ramadan.
I have no sugar because our city has no sugar. Based on all reports, there is no one who has said that they have sugar, and it is true because we do not even see anyone passing here carrying sugar. Customers had agreed to purchase sugar for up to 3,200 shillings to 4,000 shillings, but due to the directed set price, it is difficult for us.
Employees in the private sector in Zanzibar have called on President Dr. Ali Mohammed Shein to intervene by using his mandate to see how the Social Security Fund regulations can be adjusted so that employees can be compensated during this time when the coronavirus pandemic has affected various economic sectors.
The law does not permit us to claim at this time, but we want to look into this and for the President to set aside a law so as to help his people get something from social funds such as ZSSF. You find two hoteliers are married. How do you think they're living? So we ask the President, the same way he asks for our votes, to help us get our social security little by little.
The board has said that only 45% of farmers in Mtwara region have paid their inputs loans, with many farmers saying they are unable to repay their loans as they have failed to sell cashews harvested in the 2019-2020 season.
The cooperative has yet to tell us how they are prepared and how they may help farmers. This means we are still struggling to see how we will prepare for the cashew nut farming exercise.
Kumekuwa na wakulima wakitaka sana kwamba bodi ya korosho itoe pembejeo kwa njia ya mkopo.
There have been farmers who want the cashew nut board to provide inputs on loan basis. It is something that is being debated because we experienced challenges last year. Many farmers had not been paid by the government and asked for pesticides on loan, and they were given inputs. But I am sad to say that up until now, a big percentage of the pesticides have not been repaid. Only 40% has been paid.
After this break, we'll be right back.
Away first time, good start from Bolt. Bolt leading a moment and going away. Gay trying to go with him, and he's being dragged through the second place, but he's going to win it by 2 meters. Away first time, good start from Bolt. Bolt leading a moment and going away. Gay trying to go with him, and he's being dragged through the second place, but he's going to win it by 2 meters. Joaquinho, he did lose to Lend.
Welcome back, and in sports news. Tanzania Professional Boxing Regulatory Commission Secretary Yahya Poli says the commission is being run by their personal funds as there has been no boxing events for more than a month.
Office receive 5% from the boxers who go to fight abroad.
Now, despite suspension of the Football League, the Simba Sports Club new ground in Bunju has been maintained ready for the training activities once the sports ban is lifted.
Hapa nilikuwa nafyeka. Nilikuwa nafyeka, sababu nyasi zimekuwa nafyeka.
I was cutting the grass because the grass had grown so long. So I was cutting them so that even if they say they will start training tomorrow or today, the pitch will be ready. I'm here all the time. I live here. We water the grass and apply fertilizers day by day for the grass to grow well.
Aston Villa have joined Brighton and West Ham in publicly opposing the idea of completing the Premier League season at neutral venues, as their chief executive Christian Parslow warned clubs would not support measures that increase the risk of the £200 million catastrophe that is a relegation. Here's more on the story.
On Tuesday, the chief executive of the League Managers Association, Richard Bevan, said he expects the season will be cancelled if clubs did not agree to neutral venues, but Parslow argues the plan would punish clubs such as Villa, who have taken 17 of their 25 points at home. Concluding the season will bring television revenue, but Parslow pointed out the financial cost of being relegated after playing all games away from Villa Park could be far greater. Villa are second from bottom, 2 points behind 17th placed Watford with a game in hand. Parslow's warning about relegation came a day after the EFL chairman Rick Perry said things will get very messy in the Premier League try to block promotion from the Championship this season.
Eibar have become the first La Liga side to publicly express concerns about the planned return to training and have called for responsibility from league officials.
Clubs in Spain's top 2 division are due to start individual training this week after testing for COVID-19, with matches behind closed doors planned for June. But in a strongly worded joint statement, the Basque club have raised doubts about the plan. La Liga responded by saying it was natural for players to be cautious about returning, but said it was taking appropriate measures to prevent the spread of the virus. As part of a 4-step plan to restart the league, players will be given daily testing for the virus. Training centers are already being disinfected in preparation and will be subject to strict conditions on hygiene once activities resume. Spanish football has been on hold since early March when Eibar hosted Real Sociedad behind closed doors.
And that sports item ends our news bulletin for tonight. My name is Khadija Zimbwe. Thank you for watching and good night.